you're having a wonderful weekend. We talk about all issues related to the economy. We talk about finances. We talk about politics and how you can make more money for yourself. So thanks for joining. By the way, Tim Desher just showed me a little news flash that WABC, our flagship station here in New York, is now one of the top 10 AM stations in the United States. Number one. Sorry, I was going to say, I've been saying we're number one, but that is an amazing achievement. So I want to salute my friend and employer, John Katzimatidis, who, when he took over this station, by the way, was in wreckage, and now it is number one. So congratulations, John Katzimatidis. Let's get back to the economy, folks. By the way, I will be taking your calls as we approach the top of the hour. So the two issues of the day that I want to hear from you on are, number one, data centers. Are you for them or against them? If you're against them, or for them, I want to hear from you, especially if you're against them. I want to hear your argument against them. I don't understand the revolt against data centers. I think they're an amazing part of America's economic future, our infrastructure. We need them if we want an internet that works, if we want emergency services to work, if we want all our files for years and years and years, our data files, all that stuff is dependent on data centers. You have to have them, just like you have to have electric power plants if you want the lights to come on. But I want to hear your views on that, folks. I do. So the other issue that I brought up earlier, I know some people have been texting me about it. You know, Trump has this proposal to put an additional tariff on Canada because of all the smoke that is coming in. And should they pay for that? It's an interesting question. I'm on the fence on this one, so I'd like to hear from you. Is it a bad policy decision, a good one? You know, look, if you pollute my property and you're my next door neighbor, you're going to have to pay for that. So maybe, I don't know. I'm open-minded on it. Okay, let's get to my next guest, EJ Antoni, one of the top economists in the country. He's the chief economist over there at the Heritage Foundation. He works with me part-time at Unleash Prosperity. And EJ, okay, let's start with you, EJ. What do you think about this idea of taxing smoke?
Well, Steve, I'm reminded of a good friend of mine who lives in Dallas, and the property next door to him didn't properly manage their landscaping and, you know, essentially the slope of the ground, and also how they had the runoff from their building directed, all the water runoff, and there was a parking lot there and everything, and it kept flooding his backyard. And so he had to tell the people, look, if you don't take care of this, I'm going to take you to small claims court because all this water is flooding my backyard every time it rains. Well,
it's like a taking of this property, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this kind of just feels like the exact same principle, but on a national level.
Right. Okay. Well, look, I'm kind of open-minded. I mean, I don't like tariffs. I'm not a tariff guy. You're not a tariff guy. But, you know, maybe they should be paying for the harm because this has done billions of dollars of harm to our economy.
Exactly. And we should point out, this isn't just a natural disaster, right? It'd be one thing if there was an earthquake, let's say, that caused damage, and then there were spillover effects in the United States. But this is actually, it seems like it's a natural disaster because it's a wildfire, but it's actually a man-made disaster, Steve, because Canada for many, many years has chosen not to manage their forests properly, including doing things like controlled burns.
Yeah. Well, just like California did. So maybe Wyoming and these other states should be able to sue California for their incredible land mismanagement as well. So I'm undecided about it. I think you make a powerful case, and we'll see how this all plays out. We'll see if Canada actually pays up, or else they're just going to have to pay a higher tariff on their goods. But you and I are free traders. We understand trade is obviously important to our country. Okay, so EJ, next up is, I'm a little frustrated with the Republicans. I was talking to Larry Kudlow on his show earlier today, and he's a little frustrated too. Look, the Big Beautiful Bill has been an amazing accomplishment. It's provided a big plus to the economy. It's put money in the pockets of American workers to the tune of about $2,500 a year, which ain't nothing. But I'm just not hearing a lot from the Republicans. All they're talking about is spending more money, EJ. I thought they were supposed to be the party of limited government.
Yeah, Steve, I don't understand this latest reconciliation bill, 3.0. I'm looking at it. I had the exact same reaction you did. I think you're spot on. Where are the spending cuts? Where are the tax cuts?
Right.
How on earth does this make things better? It's actually got, I think, much more in there for the Democrats than for the Republicans. I'm sorry, who controls Congress again? I understand we have slim majorities, but my goodness, when the bill reads as if it wasn't even written by conservatives in the first place, I'm sorry, I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of things they could do to make this better.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, look, Republicans should not be the party of big government, because we've already got a party of big government, and that's the Democrats. They'll probably all be in favor of this bill, for all I know. I just want to see more talk about, growth. I want to talk here about tax cuts. I want to talk about deregulation. I want to talk about, promoting American energy. None of that stuff is in this bill. Now, look, Trump has done a lot of amazing things for the economy already, but it's disheartening to me. So one other issue I wanted to bring up with you, EJ, is something we wrote about in the hotline the other day, and the Wall Street Journal picked up this story in today's Wall Street Journal. They want to turn the Defense Department into a hedge fund or something like that, or where they're actually buying into these companies that are doing business with the government. The military industrial complex, I guess, is going to be owned partly by the government, and they're like venture capitalists over there at the DOD. I'm not so sure that's the right thing that our Defense Department should be doing.
Steve, you're 100% right. It's not even that, I'm not sure this is the right thing. I think this is absolutely the wrong thing, to be crystal clear here.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the military industrial complex is a big enough problem already. The
Right.
last thing we want is even more influence upon the decision makers in government by these essentially munitions companies. I don't want the venture capitalists with their thumb on the scale in terms of who we go to war with based on what is going to be best for their individual portfolios. In other words, Lockheed Martin's going to get to sell more bombs, so let's go to war with country X, Y, or Z. Absolutely a terrible idea. I understand there has to be some interplay here between government and the private sector.
Sure.
The private sector are the ones building the bombs that the Defense Department needs so we can have a military to keep us safe. I get all that. But the interaction should be limited to just that transaction. The military says we want to buy A, B, and C, munitions, planes, whatever kind of hardware from you. Okay, and then that's it.
Yeah, this creates a massive conflict of interest, too, because if the government owns some of these companies, then it's going to want to direct more of the grants to them and so on. And so you don't have necessarily a fair process for open bidding for these things. I'm with you, EJ. I think it's a terrible idea. By the way, I mentioned to you all that we will be taking your calls soon, and I don't think I gave out the More Money hotline number. So that's because I want to hear from you folks about all the stuff we've been talking about this afternoon. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222, or 1-800-848-WABC if you would like to call in and have your opinion registered here. Final question for your EJ in our last few minutes. The state of the economy, it seems to be good. We're certainly the strongest economy in the world right now, and we're growing at about 2.5%. But you were telling me earlier today that, the higher oil prices are certainly like a tax on the economy. How do you assess things for the second half of the year?
Steve, I think a lot of it's just going to depend on exactly that. What happens with oil markets? What we saw in June, for example, was not just that the consumer was spending more money. That's the case for almost every month. Consumer spending goes up. But it's the fact that the lower energy prices meant consumers' dollars went so much further. It was, if you inflation adjust the retail sales, it was a huge increase. I think that's really, really important. And so what we basically saw in June, I like to call it a peace dividend. I think that the key is getting the Strait of Hormuz open, getting oil markets to normalize. That's going to really, really be key, in my opinion, to having good, solid economic growth for the rest of the year.
So one last question on the way out then. I agree with you entirely on that. So, we were having a discussion earlier on the show about AI data centers. Tim Descher, who's here with me in the studio, and I and a group of people went over to visit the data center, the biggest data center in the country, which is in Loudoun County, Virginia. It was just an awe-inspiring experience. It's the future of the U.S. economy, and it makes the internet possible, and all of these transactions that we take place, including GPS and all of this stuff, is dependent on it. And people are worried about AI, no question. The polls show that. If anything, more people are worried about AI than excited about it. But I've talked to a lot of CEOs who say that we're already using AI. It's causing amazing increases in our productivity. And if that's the case, that could be really anti-inflationary. In other words, they can produce more with less, which is the very definition of bringing prices down.
Steve, exactly. That's so spot on. Every time you get one of these technological advancements and you see these big surges in productivity, you end up seeing costs go down. It is inherently deflationary. A big reason why people switched over from horse and carriage to automobile, it wasn't just so much reliability or ease of use, although that was certainly true. It wasn't just the fact that you didn't have to clean up the manure of a car like you do with a horse.
Right.
But it was the fact that it was so much more cost effective. It was so much more efficient. You could spend so much less of your budget on transportation, and that means you have a lot more left over for other things. So you're absolutely right. It is definitely deflationary by its very nature.
That is the great EJ Antoni, who's the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation, also works with me at Unleash Prosperity. Spot on, as usual, EJ. When we come back, by the way, this is the More Money Show, we will be taking your calls, because I always say I'm not the best radio show host, but I have the best audience. I have the smartest audience, and we love hearing from you. So I want to hear from you about, what do you think about Trump's idea of taxing Canada for all the smoke they're bringing in? And also, are you in favor of data centers or against them? And if you're against them, I want to hear why. 1-800-848-9222. My producer says we have 2 lines open. 1-800-848-9222 is the More Money hotline, and we will be right back to listen to you.